Alrighty, I think that we're live. Let me give it 1 second. Just make sure. Sweet. All right. Welcome to another live. It's been a couple days, but I just took a couple days break from this just to catch up on things. Today we are back, and as the title suggests, we are. Ooh, have we? Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah, as the title suggests, today we are talking about um, how we're going to be managing weight. So, obviously, weight management, it's not actually something that I talk too much about with my um, clients, like where needed, but I don't call myself a dietitian or a diet coach or anything like that. But I think that it's important to have a good understanding of, because obviously it interplays with your physical activity a lot, and it can have quite a bit of an effect on how, not only just how much gain you get from your training, but also a lot of the way that your gains that you do get can be expressed, can be affected by diet. So when you're so essentially, to explain like how I'm coming into this stream or this video, is I am currently in the build up to my Big V season, my refing season. So I ref Big V basketball, state league basketball in Victoria. And one thing that I deal with, and I personally need to manage quite a bit, is my weight and my intake. I'm naturally a bit of a heavier dude, and I like eating. So it makes sense that I typically do need to manage down rather than up, which is fine. It's just a thing, right? It's not bad, it's not good. Everybody has kind of like where they're comfortable sitting weight wise. But I need to recognize, and people need to recognize, when they've got not only decisions about their weight, but just like the matter of fact about where their weight is sitting, is that certain things are more difficult or easier when you have more or less weight. If you're going through a phase of really heavy weight training and all that kind of stuff, it might actually be beneficial to be a little bit heavier than what you might be other times. Not to an extreme degree, but it can be beneficial. Whereas on the flip side, I'm somebody who is in a sport where it doesn't necessarily benefit me to be any bigger, right? I would rather be really, really fast, really, really strong, obviously, to be able to maintain that over time. But then the lighter I am, the less weight that I actually need to push on every single rep, on every single game, which is going to ultimately benefit me. So I'm not trying to get stick thin, but I'm trying to now lose a little bit more because I'm a little bit higher out of the off season. Um, so that gives me now 2 months to work on that weight gain, to get to a point that I'm comfortable and I'm ready to perform at my highest level, or at least a level that I'm comfortable going into season with. So when we talk about weight gain and weight loss, it can be quite a controversial topic. Obviously, people can get quite mentally anxious about it. And also, there's a lot of differing opinions from different directions. It's obviously a common thing that people talk about, like at dinner time over the Christmas period, over the New Year's period, with family and all that kind of stuff. And it's something that everybody is an armchair expert in. They all know something that has or hasn't worked for them, something that did or didn't work for a friend. And it's really, really easy to recommend and prescribe things. But a lot of the time, when you lose the principles of what you're looking for, then it can be really, really hard to understand exactly where you need to go. So hopefully this video can kind of simplify things down for you. So we're going to go over here as we do. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about this idea of diet and how we're going to manage the weight. The first concept that we obviously need to understand, and this is probably a baseline understanding for most people, but we gotta first speak the same language. So when we're talking about our weight, let's just talk about this. Now again, it just is, right? So that is how many kg we have, or pounds, or whatever you are, depending on where you are. Let's make that a little bit more clear. Kg. Sorry for the bad handwriting. So what our kilograms are, or how much weight we have, includes a whole bunch of different things. So that includes our bones, it includes muscle, it includes connective tissue, it includes our organs, it includes fat cells, right? It includes a bunch of stuff. Now, the first thing that we need to understand is that all of these things are things that technically we can control, right? So probably the least controllable of those is your organs. There's not really a good way to make your intestines smaller, right? But what we can control, obviously without surgery and stuff, what we can control is these kinds of things, right? So if we just sat down in a chair and barely ate anything for a month, then our bone tissue would go down because there's no impact happening, right? Our muscle tissue would go down because it's not being used. It gets lost, right? Use it or you lose it. Connective tissue, same thing. It's going to reduce. It's not going to go to zero, but it's going to reduce in the amount because it doesn't need to be there as much. And essentially what our body is trying to do is survive off of as little as possible. And then fat cells. Fat cells, if we were to not eat anything, then they would be used as a store of energy because that is what fat is. So all of these things are just things that make us up and that we can either lose or gain to up or down our kilograms. Now, when we're talking about weight gain, essentially we need to be, if we want to be more specific so that we know what we're talking about, we would probably say, most people who are doing weight gain for weight loss for sport, we would probably be saying fat cells. Yeah, we're trying to lose fat cells. That is what my goal is over the next 2 months. When we're talking about weight gain on the other side, these are probably more of the things that we're talking about: connective tissue, muscle, and bones. Yeah. So most people who are talking about gaining mass for competitive reasons are going to be looking at those three things. Those three things are obviously important so that we can go out in the world and perform. Now, these things can be affected by multiple things. Actually, let's go text here. So our activity might affect it. Yeah. So what we're doing every single day. And that can be activity planned and unplanned, right? Our diet can attribute this. Our sleep can attribute to this. Our stress can attribute to this. Whole bunch of stuff. Our wellness, if we're sick or if we're not sick. There's a bunch of people that I know that lose a whole bunch of weight every single time they get sick. It's because your body is actively doing stuff. But this is the amount of essentially burn that you get of energy. So energy burn. Let me do text just because my writing's bad when I do that. Energy burn versus energy intake. Energy intake. Now, obviously, these two are important because the more energy burn that you have, the less energy intake that you have, number goes down. The less energy burn that you have versus energy intake that you have, number goes up. Now, people simplify this down to calories in versus calorie out, and I will simplify it down to calories in, calories out a lot of the time. But the thing is that when you look at the bigger picture of it is generally how much you are using versus how much you are taking in, then there's actually a few more factors that can go into it. So if I really quickly, I'm going to go back here. If I really quickly get you up a diagram of, let me type in NEAT, and I think that I should get it up. Energy intake. So there's a few different factors that affect, here we go, here's the chart that I'm looking for. So if I go this up here. All right, so let me get this nice and big, and then we'll go back to here. So when we talk about the energy that we are making use of, there's a few things that affect it, right? I'll actually drag this in here. Cool. So for those who allow access for now, Nutritionist View is where I got this from. Let's close that. So when we are, when we're talking about the amount of energy that is going out, yeah, so this is out. There are multiple things that we need to look at. So first off is our resting metabolic rate. Now, for those who don't know, resting metabolic rate is just the baseline level of energy that we use. And that is if you were to be in a bed all day, not moving, catatonic, maybe in a coma, literally, then that is how much energy you're going to use. And that's already at about 50% of your expenditure, right? So already a really big chunk is just of how much you need to survive. And that's why if you're sitting down, you still need to eat, because there are still things happening in your body. So that's your basal metabolic rate. It's really important to understand that takes up half. The next little bit of energy that we burn or we make use of is the thermic effect of meals. So the thermic effect of meals is essentially referring back to how much energy it takes to digest, chew, eat. Essentially, whenever we eat something, that is going to take a little bit of energy to be able to break down the food and make use of the fuel that is in it. So that's really important to have as well. Next thing is exercise and NEAT. So those are the things that happen based off of the exercise or the activity that we do. Now, when we talk about exercise itself, that's going to be the active, like planned activity. Now, while you can go really intense and you can probably even train for a pretty decent while most days, most of the time that doesn't actually make up a huge amount of energy burn. The bigger effect that we get from exercise in terms of energy burn is that it's raising our heart rate for a while, obviously, but then you also get like a carryover effect where like you're still recovering from that, and the recovery from your exercise is actually going to take a lot of energy, because all of a sudden your body needs to go into like anabolism, where you're like building up muscle and all that kind of stuff. The other thing with exercise is that as you exercise more and you build muscle, or your bones get thicker and all of that kind of stuff, you have more tissue to uphold. This resting metabolic rate, that becomes a bigger number as well. So exercise is still useful to get you out, but it's probably not as big of a number as you think. And most of the gains from exercise in terms of energy expenditure aren't actually on the micro, they're not on the like individual day. You might not be able to triple your your energy expenditure for the day based off of activity on one day, but you might be able to increase it over time by having more muscle mass and all that kind of stuff. But the bigger part of our active energy expenditure is going to be NEAT, which NEAT refers to anything that is just like incidental movement throughout your day. So if we didn't have this exercise thing here, it would be everything above that resting metabolic rate. Yeah. So every time that you get up, you go for a walk. Every time that you're just sitting at your desk and you're thinking, like literally your brain takes a lot of energy. If you're like bloody twiddling your thumbs, yeah, anything that you are doing movement wise, that fits into NEAT, and that's what's going to help continue to raise our amount of energy expenditure. So if you look at this, one strategy that we might have is on the long term, continue to exercise, build up our muscle mass and all that kind of stuff. But on the short term, when we're talking about 2 months, I want to manage my weight and have it go down, NEAT is something that I can really affect. Yeah. So slotting in more movement through my day more frequently to maintain a little bit higher of a heart rate, maintain more muscle use and all that. So that can look as simple as things. So let's type down here. NEAT was things outside of exercise that cause movement. That can be things like daily walks. It might be things like intermittent exercise. break. So maybe you got like a skipping rope, or you do some push-ups or something like that in between bouts of work. It could be walking to the bus, yeah, or to the train instead of driving there, or biking to work, or whatever it is. Yeah, pretty much any kind of movement like that. It might be somebody who uses like a walking pad, or it might be just like tossing. I got this ball, I just like toss it all the time, right? So just like having like something, there it goes. I'm going to leave that there. Just having something to do. So tossing and losing a ball. See, I'm trying to do too many things at once. So NEAT, that is going to affect how much energy we have going out. And that's going to be a really big factor when it comes to how we're able to manage that weight, because the higher that number is, the less that we need to kind of overcome. Now, the other thing that comes to here is that as we go through and we continue to increase our exercise, increase our NEAT, then obviously your body is generally going to have to recover a bit more. So then again, resting metabolic rate also goes up. So that's our energy burn. That's how you can adapt that. That's how you can make it go up over time, or over that like period that you want to be losing a bit more weight. If you want to do the opposite, then you probably do the opposite, right? So if you want to gain a little bit more weight and you're struggling to gain it, maybe you need to put away one extra walk, whatever it is. Obviously, there's mental health reasons, there's physical, like strength reasons why you might do a little bit more, but it is a lever that you can pull. Then the next thing is energy intake. Now, I think that there's two major camps, and there's one camp that says that it's all just calories, and then there's another camp that says that it's not just the calories. Why won't you let me go? It's not just the calories, but it's the quality of those calories. Right? So a lot of calories in, calories out people will just say, hey, it's just about the number that ends up in your tracker. A lot of the people that are talking about quality of calories, they might not even just be talking about necessarily like the macros, like your protein, carbs, and fats, but also things like the quality of the food. So including like micronutrients and that kind of stuff, or maybe even how much fiber it is. There's a lot of obviously other qualities that you have to food. And I would say that if you look at it, both are important, and both are going to have an effect on what those calories actually do or achieve. The other camp that you might fall into is people who talk about things like timing, yeah, or excluding food groups, or whatever it is. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So for calories in, calories out, the gain. Essentially, when we talk about this, it's how many, essentially just like boiling it down to a number. And the reality is that if you had 100 grams for the day, and it is chocolate or it is an apple, maybe 100 is too small, let's say like 1,700 calories, whatever. If you have too little calories in a day, you will eventually lose weight. That is true. However, if I have 2,000 calories of really terrible food versus really great food for me, and let's maybe not, actually no, we're going to remove the labels of good and bad, but we're going to have 1,000 calories of less nutritious food, right? So we could just say like, in this case, E.G, simple carbs. So let's just say that we had 1,000 calories of just bread, right? It doesn't really have too much else in it. Let's say that it's a basic white bread as well. It's pretty much just a bunch of carbs. And then you have 1,000 calories of nutritious food. Let's say E.G, steak and vegetables, right? Vegetables have a bunch of micronutrients. Ooh, yeah, no, I did that right. Vegetables have a bunch of micronutrients. Steak has a bunch of protein, a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not even going to get into it right now. But essentially, I think that most people would agree that 1,000 calories of bread probably isn't going to be as useful for you as 1,000 calories of nutritious food. Now, the other thing that happens here is that there is a whole bunch of other metabolic processes that happen out of this. So let's say that we also had something that was like a little bit more fatty here. Let's say that you have like an avocado, yeah, or something with fat. Something with fat, right? Maybe it's like butter or something like that. If you have something with fat in it, the fat actually takes a lot longer to break down than a carb, right? So carbs are a very rich like energy source, and that's why when people are going on runs and marathons and things, or if you're drinking a Gatorade or something like that to replenish energy, then it's going to have very simple carbohydrates. And the reason they're called simple carbohydrates is because they're easy to break down. So gels that people use when they're on marathons, they are one of the simplest carbs to break down, and it's very quick energy. Whereas something with fats are very complex molecules that take longer to break down into energy. Now, if you have something that is mainly fats and does not have many carbs in it, and that is your only food for, I don't know, let's say 12 hours because it's your last meal that you have before bed, then that is going to mean that eventually your body is going to switch to a more like fat heavy energy usage, right? Because it's not going to have any simple carbs left in the system. Whereas if you've constantly got yourself topped up with simple carbs, let's say maybe you have like cereal for breakfast and cereal for the last thing before you go to bed, and you have like a whole bunch of other carbs throughout your day in the middle as well, then your body is constantly using simple carbs. Now, there is nothing bad about simple carbs. There is nothing necessarily good about simple carbs. They are just a thing. But we need to recognize that that thing is easier to break down than fats. Therefore, that resting metabolic rate, or the thermic effect of meals actually would be more accurate. The thermic effect of meals will be a smaller number because it's not as difficult to break down. Now, I'm not saying that you're not digesting the fat. It's just that it might be a little bit more simple to digest it because you're not breaking it down into energy. So the kinds of foods, not only other than just like quality and like how healthy you're going to be and how good you're going to feel, right? Like that is a different story from what we're talking about today. Even just as far as what we're talking about today, having those different types of foods that you're going to eat are going to require different amounts of energy to break them down. Yeah. And that's where you get things like the ketogenic diet being things that some people swear by in order to lose weight. Because if you have a low carb diet, then that's going to naturally put you in a state of ketosis for longer. And while there's some evidence showing that like ketones are actually beneficial for you, even if you just look at the fact that you are now breaking down fats as your energy source, then that is going to be beneficial for weight loss. Outside of weight loss, you can probably actually make an argument that having this kind of effect is going to be negative for you, because if I wake up in the morning and the last carb that I had was 18 hours ago, then I'm not going to have a quicker fuel source, which is going to mean that it's going to take me longer to get energy for my run or for my gym session or whatever it is. So that might be a situation where you do something like honey or toast or something like that so that you can have those quick energy source. But if you're just trying to get a workout done, get a general effect from it, not have it be super intense, and performance isn't necessarily your goal, then that might be an idea. So how am I applying? Actually, before I go to how am I applying, I'm applying this timing thing. So that was just about a little bit about how we might exclude something like carbs from our diet to do it. Something like timing can also affect it, right? So if we have longer between meal breaks, or we have something like an intermittent fasting schedule, then that is going to give your body time to break down those fats rather than the carb source that you might be eating right before. Um, Additionally, if we have bigger break in between, then we might not get hit as hard by that food as well, meaning that we can be a little bit more active. So timing can be a really big factor. Like everyone knows, when you have like a big lunch that's like really like carby, then a lot of us will end up feeling a bit tired, want to have a nap. Things like timing can affect not only our activity, but also how we break down that food, or that energy, and therefore they can actually have quite a bit of effect on the energy going out. So that's where energy going in gets a little bit more complex. So how am I going to manage things? Over the next couple of months, there's a couple of things that I'm going to do to affect here so that this number can go down, because that is where I need it to go. So first off, I'm going to try and make sure that I tick these things, right? So when it comes to sleep, when it comes to stress, when it comes to wellness, right now it's a little bit late, 12:08. Right after I get off the stream, I'm going to read, go to bed, chill, right? That is important to do. When it comes to my diet, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to eat more nutritious food. So right now, between now and March, really big focus to not be getting too much fast food. Yeah, some fast food can be pretty all right for you. Most of it, and most of the ones that I will tend to go to when I eat fast food, not going to be great, right? So I'm going to opt for more like homemade stuff. The other thing, when it comes to this like timing stuff and like what kind of energy I'm using and all that kind of stuff, for me, something that works is something that resembles closer to intermittent fasting. When I lost a lot of weight first thing out of high school, I did a really hard period of intermittent fasting for probably about 6 months, and I lost a heap of weight and it worked well. My energy was definitely a lot lower than what I would have wanted though, over that period. And I also lived a life where I didn't need to work as much. I still was busy, but I didn't have as much like need to be switched on every single day. So all that I'm going to be doing as far as like timing and intermittent fasting goes, is I'm going to be making sure that I eat my last meal a little bit earlier. I have a tendency to eat pretty late in the night for my last meal. I'm going to try and shift it closer to like 6 p.m., or as close as I can get on any individual day. And then I'm going to move my first meal of the next day as late as I can. So I'm going to try and have lunch instead of breakfast, potentially have like a protein water or something like that in the morning, but nothing that's actually like a heavy meal. And nothing that's like a like really simple carb early unless I'm training. If I have a good reason, I'm happy to have that simple carb, but I need to essentially be doing some sort of intense training. For me, that is mostly in the form of either a sprint session or a gym session in the morning. That being said, because I know that this that I'm going to be shifting my time later, I'm probably not going to be doing as many morning gym sessions over this time. Next thing I'm going to be doing is trying to make sure that I reserve most of my carbs, other than like a hit before training, to one meal of the day. So if I've got an afternoon training session at 4 p.m., I might have a quick hit of carbs at like 3:30 before, maybe like a banana or some bread or something like that. And then after I get off of training, I'll have my proper meal, not only with protein, but also some level of carbohydrates, just to continue, just to replenish those fuel stores. And then again, going to the next day, I'm going to give myself time before I sit down and have another one of those. I'm not going to exclude carbs, but I'm just going to reduce the amount that I'm having, especially that spread out throughout the day, just to see how that kind of affects things. When it comes to energy out, yeah, so that's diet ticked. When it comes to energy out and that activity, I'm not going to try and put up my plan. There's going to be a little bit more cardio just because I've got a focus on improving my cardiorespiratory system, my ability to continue performing, but that doesn't necessarily have to do with the weight loss. If anything, cardio can sometimes have a negative effect on weight loss because you end up being more hungry and you end up wanting to eat more. But it's definitely not bad. It's just something that can make it a little bit more difficult. But I'm gonna have a big focus on this. So whenever I have whatever time I have my training session or my exercise for that day, I'm going to oppose it with some sort of walking or just light activity, right? So tomorrow I have a gym session in the afternoon. In the morning, I'm gonna get down. I'm gonna have a bit of a walk around. I might throw a little bit of like a half jog in there, but I'm gonna get some sort of movement in the morning to just have it, on both ends of the day. Yeah. Additionally, in my work days, quite sitting quite a lot for my work right now, so I'm also going to insert some sort of movement throughout. And just by doing that, just by adding a little bit of extra movement, I'm hoping that this number here gets bigger. Gets bigger. And the bigger that number gets, the more potential I have to lose weight. That's my plan, and I'm going to manage that over the next couple of months. The other thing that I always do when I'm trying to lose weight is I weigh myself daily. A lot of people really don't like that for the mental side. For me, it doesn't affect me as much. I do view it more as just a number. So for me, it's just important that I continue to check it so that I keep on having it front of mind, because that influences my decisions throughout the day. And then from there, we're just going to see how we go over the next couple of months. Hopefully, I can probably lose between like 5 and 10 kilos, somewhere there, when I see where I'm feeling comfortable. And then from there, going into the first few months of the season, I'll see how I'm feeling, see if I want to keep on losing over those first few months, or whether I just want to stay stable. That's kind of how I'm going to manage it. As I said, I'm definitely not a nutrition coach, definitely not the like the most educated resource on it, but I think that having a simple framework as to how you view things going in versus out is going to help you. And despite me not being a nutritionist or anything like that, I have had multiple people that I've helped manage a little bit of that diet alongside their training. So I think that it can be useful just to use simple concepts like that rather than necessarily getting into the nitty gritty when you're managing these things from time to time. From there, if you have any questions, make sure to let me know always. I'm always looking to try and help out and answer those things and continue to develop ideas, right? The whole point of this channel is to break down some of the stuff that can be made really, really complex and just give the information that's actually necessary for it and useful for people. So I want to give really actionable advice. So yeah, give me a yell if you got any questions. Shoot a comment on this video or shoot me an Instagram DM, whatever works best for you. And I can hope to try and answer your question. Otherwise, I'll be back here live soon enough. Yeah, let me know if you got anything. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Click on the link, should be either here or here, on the next recommended video